So by now, you will most likely have seen Warpath's new trailer. It's an epic, cinematic masterpiece that's set in World War II. It uses live action and CGI. In the film, two brothers take part in a campaign during World War II. One is a pilot in a P-51 Mustang sporting D-Day stripes and is flying over what looks like Utah or Omaha Beach on the 6th of June, 1944. At the same time, a twin brother is in the 101st Airborne, sitting in a Horsa glider troop carrier. It looks like they're attempting to go in behind enemy lines, escorted by the P-51. When the P-51 pilot gets shot down by flak, the other brother is taking out flak guns. One brother gets captured, and the other brother fights on. The whole thing reaches a climax in what looks like a French town, where the two brothers almost come face to face. It's an intense and bloody action sequence that leaves us wondering if the two brothers survived. And then we see the final reveal of their graves. It's a parable for brotherhood in war, brothers in arms. But at the end, we see the film was based upon two real brothers. Could two brothers really be in D-Day and go through those incredible episodes, almost missing each other, and survive? Well, in short, no. But that said, the two brothers really existed, and their story was frankly incredible. We were asked by Warpath to make the real story of Ralph and Boyd Henderson. We included sources in the description of this one, as some of them are single sources, but it's an amazing story. In January 1941, Ralph Henderson's draft number was announced over the radio. Concerned for Ralph, their mother encouraged Boyd to join alongside him so he could keep an eye on Ralph and be there through his year-long service. Boyd agreed, and the twins enlisted in the National Guard, becoming part of the 183rd Field Artillery Battalion. They were due to be discharged when Pearl Harbor started.
In a tragic turn of events, the news is the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. President Roosevelt has just announced. An attack was also made on all naval and military bases in the principal island of Oahu. The president read a brief statement to reporters. Such an attack would of course bring a counterattack.
The men were just as shocked as the rest of the nation. They knew this meant war. In the words of Boyd, now we're stuck. Their discharge was cancelled, and their unit quickly prepared for war. They were both transferred to the 805th Tank Destroyer Battalion, utilising M3 GMC tank destroyers, and sent to North Africa. The unit arrived in January 1943. The brothers were assigned to separate companies. They attempted to stay in contact as much as possible, but it would prove difficult, especially as the war progressed. They would see their first taste of combat on the 16th of February 1943, with the ill-fated attack of Kasserine Pass. The Allies dug in to defend the strategically important valley against the onslaught of Rommel's famous Afrika Korps, to tragic results. The Henderson brothers fought valiantly, engaging the enemy with their M3 tank destroyers as shells flew overhead and struck their fellows. By the time they retreated, the battalion had lost the entirety of C Company and suffered heavy losses on B and A. Many of the men the brothers got to know never made it back from those hills. The experience weighed heavily on the two of them. But they soldiered on. The brothers continued seeing heavy combat throughout the entirety of the North African campaign, all the way to its conclusion in May 1943. They had some months of respite before once again being sent to combat, this time in Italy. By this stage, their capacity to stay in contact had deteriorated. Throughout the Africa campaign, they could see each other every few weeks, but after their transfer to Europe, they would spend months without knowing each other's whereabouts. Boyd once read his brother's name in the morning report on a list of the confirmed dead. He said, "I kept on saying, it can't be, it can't be." A month later, the brothers met again, and he discovered that the casualty was not his brother, but another young man who had an identical name. Boyd would see the most action out of the two, with Ralph spending time in the transport platoon, while Boyd remained in the Tank Destroyer Company for the majority of the war. Both proved to be good soldiers, being promoted to first lieutenants, and Boyd would be assigned as a commander of an M10 Wolverine tank destroyer. Throughout the Italian campaign, Boyd would see action at the Bernhard Line and the infamous Battle of Monte Cassino. During Monte Cassino, Boyd was commanding his Wolverine, providing fire support to infantry charging the hills, when a German anti-tank round came flying down from the forest above. It grazed the rear of his turret, bending the relatively thin armour and firing shrapnel all over Boyd's back. He felt the strike and was thrown forward in the turret, falling to his knees as blood ran down his back. His shocked crew instantly turned around and drove him to safety. He would spend a few days in a field hospital before returning to service. Immediately after Monte Cassino, both brothers were sent to the stalling ANZIO beachhead. Here, Ralph would perform his most heroic act of the war. They were in camp, resting from battle, when an explosion sounded in the distance. Ralph and his tablemates sprung into action. Running through the forest, they hear the cries of an injured man. Emerging from the foliage, they find a poor soldier strewn across the floor beside a landmine crater. Afraid of more landmines, the two got on the ground and slowly crawled forward, tentatively testing the ground with their bare hands. It was tortuous listening to their compatriots screaming and crying in pain, being so close, but knowing that they cannot risk joining him. Finally, they reach the soldier. Each of them grab the man by an arm and drag him out of the minefield. The Allies would break through the German lines near ANZIO and continue their push for Rome. Rome was given up by the Germans, and the Allies liberated it to great jubilation. The twins would find each other once again during the celebrations and found the time to liberate a Nazi flag from a local post office as a souvenir. They would continue to fight, taking part in the capture of Bologna on April 1945 and the Brenner Pass on May that same year. VE Day would finally come just a few days later, finally bringing an end to the war. They both returned home with the rank of Major. Ralph received a Silver Star for his actions, rescuing the soldier from the minefield, and Boyd would receive a Purple Heart for his injury in Monte Cassino. Ralph and Boyd Henderson would reach their 100th birthdays together the entire way. They passed away just 25 days apart in late 2018. So this is a very different story from what's in the Warpath trailer. But does it matter? The real theme of the trailer is brotherhood and war. And while the two brothers never did those things, almost all of those events happened in one way or another by brothers in arms. We loved the trailer, and we'd like to thank Warpath for giving us the opportunity to do the real story of the Henderson twins. And you too have a chance to feel the truest brotherhood in a carefully simulated war environment. With Warpath, you can join alliance battles and cooperate with other players to form a deep brotherhood in the real war. In Warpath, you can form or join a military alliance and control the tanks and all the other weapons. Tiger tanks, T-34 tanks, all weapons are authentic, and they have their own strengths. And as we told, it's a real-time strategy game, so it's different from the other turn-based games. You need to adjust your actions accordingly to the enemy's reaction in Warpath. Everything is fair. There's no limitation of combat power. Use your wisdom and you'll be able to defeat an enemy who is much more powerful than you. The more strategically you arrange your army and weapons, the more possible you will be the winner in wars. Travel back to some of the most famous historical battles and change the course of history with maps and terrains in Warpath. They're based upon real battle locations with a huge variety of well-known tanks, rifles, artillery and fighters. And don't forget, Warpath has also added the latest sniper gameplay. Choose a handy sniper gun and take part in a secret assassination mission. Cover your allies on the battlefield and win together.